Desired state configuration, configurations, and pull servers. We've got a lot to walk through here. I'm going to actually show you what a sample configuration looks like and then show you how to push it to a computer. I'm also going to show you how to set up the same thing for pull server mode. I'm going to start by showing you how to write a simple DSC configuration script and then push that script to a remote computer. You'll be able to see the remote computer apply the changes in the configuration, meaning we're going to take a look at it beforehand and afterwards, and you will be able to see a difference. So it will implement whatever we've told it to do in that configuration. That's the easy stuff. Next, I'm going to show you how to set up a pull server, and I'll give you a couple of different ways, including a script that I've written that can set it up for you. I'm going to create that same configuration on the pull server and then show you how to set up a machine to use pull mode, meaning it's going to grab the configuration from the pull server and we'll be able to check the before and after to see it implement that configuration automatically. I want to start by showing you a sample configuration script. Now, this is the type of configuration script that you write on your computer, on your workstation. You can do it in the PowerShell ISE. And the configuration script is meant to describe what one or more computers should look like. Now, I'm currently remoted into a server where I've stored some of these things just to get this demo set up, because there's kind of a lot of moving pieces here. And there's my sample config.ps1. So let's take a look at that. Now you can see it's not very long of a script. It starts with this configuration block. Now this looks a lot like a function or a workflow, except that instead of the keyword function, it uses the keyword configuration. The name of this configuration is pull demo. Now this is the entire script. So what I'm actually going to do, just to make this a little easier to read, is copy it to my local clipboard and spin up a copy of my local ISE. That way we can make the font a bit bigger if we want to and do all that sorts of fun stuff. So you'll notice at the end of this script, I'm actually executing the configuration. So you're going to get to see what that does in just a second. I'm currently sitting on a Windows 8 computer though, so it's got PowerShell version 3 installed. So I'm not actually going to execute this here. We're just going to look at it here. I'm actually going to run it on the server, which does have PowerShell version 4 installed. Inside the configuration block, you can have one or more node sections. Now these nodes specify a computer. You can see here I've specified member2. That's a server name. You don't have to have a static list here. You could put a script block and execute a command. For example, I might retrieve all of the computer names from a specific Active Directory organizational unit. Or I might just list a bunch of names. So there's kind of a trick, and this is one area where DSC differs significantly from group policy that you need to be aware of, because it's going to affect how you plan. Each given machine, each node, each server or computer that you plan to manage via DSC can only be given a single configuration. So if I'm planning to specify the configuration of member2 in this configuration, then everything I want configured in member2 needs to live inside this node block. I only get one shot at this. I only get one place to specify everything. Now I'm choosing to specify only one thing. This is the name of a DSC resource. It's called Windows Feature. This happens to be one of the DSC resources that comes with PowerShell version 4. So I'm assured that this thing already exists on all of my PowerShell version 4 computers. I don't have to worry about getting that resource there. It's already there. The feature I want to install is backup. So inside of a given configuration item, I guess is what we can call this highlighted piece, you specify the name of the resource. Now that might be registry, it might be Windows Feature, it might be Windows Installer, whatever hunk of functionality you're referring to. Each of them is going to take a name. So in this case, whoa, didn't mean to scroll down. In this case, I'm specifying backup as the Windows feature I want to configure. I'm not necessarily, this one line, line 3, is not necessarily saying install the backup feature. It's simply saying I want to describe a configuration for the backup feature in Windows. each configuration item can have one or more configuration details. Now, I got to make this up. I could have called this Fred. Ba-ba-ba. The Windows feature I want to install is Windows-Server-Backup. So this information is going to be provided to the Windows feature resource so that it knows what to configure. And I'm also specifying its ensure configuration setting, ensuring that this is present. So let's say there was another one. Let's say I wanted to also do this with Telnet server. I might create a second block. Now, assuming that the actual Windows feature for the Telnet server is called telnet-server, then this would ensure that it is present. I could change this to not present, meaning when you go through and configure member 2, the node, I want you to make sure that the Telnet server does not exist. If someone has come along and installed it without my knowledge, I want you to remove it, and it will. It will absolutely do that. So you see, you're really describing the end state. This is what I want the computer to look like. I want it to have this. I want it to have this. I don't want it to have this other thing, whatever. All right, so I'm going to just delete that. We're not actually, oops, didn't mean to save that. We're not actually going to run this here, like I said. And there's a couple of ways I can now, let's just say I've got this. We're going to go back over to the computer where this actually lives. Let's say I've got this. I can choose to run this. So I'm going to run sampleconfig.ps1. So I ran the script. Now look what it did here. Let's get a directory listing again. And the name of my configuration in that script was called PullDemo, right? There it is, PullDemo. So in running this script, PowerShell has automatically created a folder called PullDemo. In here, it has created a moth file for each targeted node. Now, my configuration only targeted one node, member 2, and so it only needed to produce one moth file. Let's look and see what's in there. Now, that's what a moth file looks like. We've got a bunch of metadata up here. The target node for this moth is member 2. I generated it. Here's the date and time I did it, and it was generated on the host pull1. It's not really important information, just nice to know. The rest of this is all information that's going to be read by the local configuration manager, the LCM, on member 2, and it's going to use this information to reconfigure member 2 to match this. So let's see. I need to open another PowerShell window here. Try and get these two a little bit side by side-ish. Enter ps session computer name member2.lab.pri. Let's take a look at this node just to verify its current condition. Get Windows feature. Wait and see, there it goes. All right, so somewhere on here, here's Windows Server Backup. It is available, which means the code necessary to install this is sitting on the server, and that's what makes it a good demo. But you can see here the empty checkbox, it is not currently installed. So in theory, if I push this moth file over to this computer, within 15 minutes, it will scan this, execute it, install the feature. I should be able to run this again, and this should be ready to go. You know what? In fact, I'm willing to go ahead and try it. I don't see why we wouldn't do it. Before we do that, I'm actually going to switch over to I'm going to exit out of here and close this PowerShell console. I'm going to go over to the actual console on pull1 because I don't quite have all my remoting set up to let me do all this from a remote computer. So PowerShell, cd-dsc, there's PullDemo. Okay, so let's say I'm ready now to push this PullDemo configuration out to its member nodes. What do I do? Well, I really just have to run a command. Start DSC configuration. Computer name is member2 dot, Ooh, you know what? I just realized I probably need to make a minor change because, well, I was thinking that well, here, look. In my pull demo, I used member2 as the target name. Let's just see what happens if I try to do this with the fully qualified name. Start DSC configuration, member2.lab, oops, I got a parameter name, member2.lab.pri, and the path is going to be cdsc pull demo. Pull demo. The computer-specific MOF file does not exist in the current directory. Yeah, see, it's trying to grab this. All right, let's see if I don't need to use, if I can talk to the computer. It looks like I can talk to it without having the fully qualified domain name. So let's just do it this way. Okay, that actually launches as a background job. So it is presently running. Let's do a get job, and it is still running. That will automatically and immediately apply the configuration. I'm trying to listen out the side of my ear to see if the hard drive on my server is spinning up a little as it tries to install that Windows feature. It's still running. Let's switch back over. Well, tell you what. Oh, completed. Okay, all right. So let's switch back to my Windows 8 computer, and let's run get Windows feature again. Oh, look, there it is. Windows Server Backup. It was that fast. It ran through that entire configuration. And because that configuration file specified, hey, Windows Server Backup is supposed to be installed, that's exactly what happened. Now look what I'm going to do. Remove Windows feature, Windows Server Backup. This poor computer. Do you want it installed or not? Pick one. Okay, so I need to restart the computer. So let's exit out of this remoting session. Restart computer member2.lab.pri. Oh, you're going to be that way, are you? Well, then I'll just do it through the session. Restart computer. Yep. And this error is saying that I tried to run the exit command, but we'd already disconnected because the computer is restarting. So I'm going to give that just a couple of minutes. I'm going to pause. We'll give that a couple of minutes to come back up, and then we'll reconnect and see where it is. Okay, it looks like we're back. So I'm reconnected. Let's do a get Windows feature. Collecting data. Windows Server Backup is not installed. So now what I'm going to do is pause this. I'm going to come back in 15 minutes or so. And I'm going to see if the local configuration manager has rerun, realized that Windows Server Backup is missing, and if it's gone ahead and installed it. So we'll be back in about 15 minutes. Okay, a little bit of time has passed, and I hope my connection is still good. Let's try running Windows. Oh, there it is. Windows Server Backup already installed. So what I've just done is I've created a configuration, and I've used the push model to push that out to the target computer, where the target computer then applied that. And as you can see, it's going to continually analyze and reapply that if necessary. And then the neat thing about this is if you undo one thing, it's going to still check the entire configuration and make sure that every little thing is right. So it's perfectly happy to fix just one missing component in this case. It can also reconfigure the entire computer. In fact, if you put a configuration script together that was detailed enough, then that would be how you provisioned new servers. In fact, System Center Virtual Machine Manager actually has the capability of injecting these configuration MOFs as it deploys new virtual machines. So you don't really build gold master images for different purposes anymore. You essentially start with a WIM image that comes with the operating system. So let's say it's the WIM image, the Windows installer image for Windows Server 2012 R2. You can keep that image serviced, meaning you can apply patches and stuff directly to the image so that anytime a new machine is built from that image, it's automatically up to date. Let it run the installer, drop the configuration MOF file on it, and it will configure itself to look exactly how you need. Now, all of the built-in resources are really what's going to provide the capabilities for you. So I want to share a couple of things with you. First of all, stop that. First of all, let's talk about the resources that come with this thing. First of all, you have an archive resource. That has the ability to unpack zip files. You also have environment. That has the ability to set environment variables. You've got file. That lets you manage files and folders on your target nodes. You got group. That lets you manage local user groups. You've also got log, which lets you work with configuration messaging. You've got package. Now, that works through Windows Installer. It can also work with setup.exe packages. So this is going to let you install and manage software. This one is a hugely useful one because most of what we do when we're provisioning a machine is install software. That has the ability to simply make sure that the software is installed. You've also got process. That lets you configure Windows processes. Registry. You'll never guess what that does. And Windows feature. Let's see. They call this the role resource. It's the one that we just looked at, Windows features and roles. You've got script. That lets you run any arbitrary PowerShell script. Services. And the last one is local user accounts. Now those are the ones that are built in. Let's talk now about some of the extra ones, because not too long ago, for Christmas, December 2013, Microsoft released a holiday gift, and it's a new set of resources. Now, you'll notice the name on these are preceded by X. That means they're, as I'm describing these, they're experimental. What that means is that Microsoft has done a good effort at putting them out to begin with, but they're not officially supporting these things through any channel yet. So the computer resource lets you name a computer and add it to a domain or work group, certainly useful. VHD lets you manage and create virtual hard drive images. VM Hyper-V lets you create virtual machines. VM Switch lets you create virtual switches, all in Hyper-V. DNS server address lets you bind a DNS server address to one or more NICs, so you can set the DNS server addresses for NICs. Similarly, IP address resource lets you configure IP addresses. Website lets you deploy and configure websites on IIS, and this is the neat one. That's why I'm doing it last. This resource actually lets you set up a DSC pull server. So remember, the example I just walked through, I created the moth and I pushed it. And that means if I ever make changes to that configuration for that node, I have to re-push the moth. I have to do that manually. You're doing that with a lot of computers, it can kind of become tedious. The other model is the pull model. And it's where you set up a special web server that becomes known as the DSC pull server. All of your moth files live on the pull server. Now there is still a one-time manual configuration task you have to complete, and that's to go tell all of your managed nodes, hey, I want you to start looking at this pull server for your configurations from now on. You got it? You understand? Going to do it? Good. From then on, every 30 minutes by default, they will log into that pull server, check for the latest moth. If there's a change, they'll download it. And here's a neat thing. Once they download the moth, if there is a configuration item in there that uses a resource that isn't present, let's say, for example, that you've taken advantage of this computer one, which lets you name computers and add it to domains and workgroups. So in your configuration, you've referred to this thing, and you've specified a domain name that you want the computer to be a member of. And so that's part of its configuration. Well, this doesn't come with PowerShell version 4. In the push model, you're responsible for making sure this code gets copied to all of your managed nodes so that they can run their configurations. Again, gets to be kind of a pain in the neck. However, and this is the fun one, with the pull model, you can put these resources on the pull server. So let's get some screen space here. So let's say I am right here. I'm the node, and here is my pull server. Now, one of the things the pull server has is my moth file. So every 30 minutes, I go and check to see if there's a new moth file. If there is, I copy it back and I start executing it. Now, let's say that moth file refers to a resource that I, the node, don't have. I can install that resource in a zip file on the pull server. I'm going to run through my configuration. Oh, hey, this is referring to a resource called computer or X computer. I don't have that. Hey, pull server, do you? Oh, you do have that. Great. I'll copy that zip file down. I'll unzip it into the correct location, and then I'll proceed running my configuration because now I have the resource I need. So this pull server can be an awesome way to centrally control everything. Now, because it's based on IIS, you actually have built-in high availability capabilities. For example, you could set up two absolutely identical pull servers. Maybe they get their content from a central location on your storage area network, and you can put a load balancer like application request routing, or ARR, or you could use Windows NLB, or you could use any type of hardware or software load balancer so that incoming requests get distributed between the two pull servers. That helps you scale out so the pull servers can support more managed nodes checking in. But also, if one pull server dies, you get high availability because you've got more. You've essentially built a pull server farm. So that's a neat technique. Now, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to pause for just a second. I'm going to go reset all of my virtual machines, and then I'm going to show you how I can set up a pull server. Now, I already showed you there's a resource. So you could set up a configuration that refers to the, what was it called? Set up a configuration that refers to XDSC web service. Make sure that resource exists on the machine you want to make into a pull server, and then actually use DSC to make it into a DSC pull server. That's one way. You can also completely set up a pull server manually. For my part, I put together a little script, and I'm going to show you where on PowerShell.org you can find this script if you choose to use this yourself. Again, no reason not to use the DSC web service, but I've kind of put together a whole little demo script that maybe will make it a little clearer about all the little pieces that have to happen. There's quite a few things that have to occur to really put a DSC pull configuration in place. And you might just want this for reference, so I'm going to show you where it is. Let's see if I can just punch in DSC in the search box and pull this up. Yep, here it is. So you can pull all this down. I'll leave that there so you can see the URL where that lives, that dsc.zip. You can just copy that URL and grab it. But there's also a description of what all the little components of this are. So we're going to kind of run through all of this right now, actually. Why not? All right, so I need to actually run this on a computer that actually has PowerShell version 4 installed. So this is the computer I'm going to turn into a pull server. And let's just take a look at my little demo script because there's several steps and it's a little easier to walk through this way. So scroll it to the top here. I've got a couple of functions I defined. You do have to create hashes and checksums for these things, and you'll see where that happens in here. So the first thing we're going to do is set the execution policy so that my script can run. That's all this is doing. And here's the URL to get to the script if you need it. So the first thing, set it up. I am running install pull server config. That is a script that is supplied as part of this that actually sets up the pull server. Now the next thing I'm doing is I'm running, see that sample config.ps1? Remember I ran that earlier to create the moth file? That's all that's happening here. I'm simply running this to create a moth file. Then we're going to move that moth file from its default location, right, which was dsc pull demo member2.moth, remember that? Well, we need to put it into the folder that the web service is looking at. And that's going to be under program data, PS, PowerShell, DSC pull server, configuration, and then I've got this GUID, and that's the new moth file name. Now, as a kind of a security thing and a way of checking to make sure that the file integrity works, when a machine tries to get its pull config from the pull server, it wants to check the checksum. So I have to generate a checksum. The machine will download them off, generate a checksum, and then compare it to the checksum I've given it, and that'll tell it that it actually got the correct file. So what I'm doing is grabbing that MOF file. This is actually going to grab every MOF file in the directory. So this is a good command to use if you've loaded up a bunch of MOFs. And for each one, I'm going to run that new checksum file. And that's this function I defined up here at the top. And all that's doing is creating a SHA-256 hash of the file and saving it out with a .checksum file name extension to the same location. So we'll get to see what all that does. The reason I've got a lot of write debugs in here is so that we can kind of stop before and after each step and then go look and see what it did. So we are going to run all this. So that generated the checksum files. Next, I'm actually going to see if Windows Server Backup is installed or not. And then I'm going to configure my member server, member2, to use pull mode. Whoops, too much scrolling. So the way we're doing that is running sample set pull mode. I'm going to look at that one next. Don't worry, sample set pull mode. We are then going to force a check, so we're going to invoke a sim method on the remote computer. This is really just a bit of demoing. You would never do this in real life, I don't expect. But what I'm doing is going into the WMI root Microsoft Windows desired state configuration namespace. I'm getting a reference to the local configuration manager, and I'm telling it, hey, go do your configuration check now. Don't wait 30 minutes. All this is to make the demonstration more interesting so we don't have to sit around and wait for half an hour. Then we're going to check the Windows feature availability again. So the one thing I want to take a quick look at is sample set pull mode. So get content, sample set pull mode. Here's what that looks like. Let me get the whole thing to fit on the screen here. I am running, let's see, so I've created my, my configuration. Now look, in order to tell a remote machine that it should use a pull server, you actually write and push a DSC configuration to it. So you're using DSC to reconfigure DSC. So I've created a configuration called set pull mode. It's targeting member2. I have created a configuration for the local configuration manager. So this is a configuration setting. Remember in the previous example I showed you, we had a setting that installed Windows Server Backup. This is configuring the LCM on member2. And I'm telling it to apply. I'm giving it a configuration ID. This is going to be the GUID that this computer looks for when it goes to grab its MOF files. Scroll up a little bit. Remember when I created the MOF file here by running my configuration, and then I moved it to where IIS needs to see it. I gave it the same GUID file name. So that's where the match comes from. I'm telling that computer to look for this GUID, and then I have to make sure that there's a MOF file with that GUID. Its refresh mode is being set to pull. Its download manager name is Web Download Manager, so it's going to pull via HTTP. Here's the server URL it's going to use, pull1.lab.pri. It sets itself up on port 8080 by default. PSDSC pullserver.svc is the web service name. And I'm going to allow HTTP. That's what allow unsecure connection. The alternative would be false, and then it would need to be HTTPS, which means setting up certificates and all that stuff. I'm also, strictly for the purposes of this being a demonstration, having it refresh every 5 minutes instead of every 30. So it's going to go through and recheck that. At the end of this script file, I'm running set pull mode. That runs this configuration and produces a MOF file. Then I'm running the command. I'm still on my local computer here. I'm running set DSC local configuration manager on member2. I'm giving it the path. So because this is called set pull mode, it's going to create a folder called set pull mode. So I'm giving it that path, and I'm asking it to provide verbose output. That's going to push this configuration to member2, which will set it to pull mode from now on, and then it should start logging in and grabbing that. There's a lot of pieces that have to happen here. In fact, if you want to keep track, I've really got two configuration files, right? Configuration 1 is installing Windows Server Backup. Configuration 2 is setting pull mode. This one is going to be part of my IIS folder path. This one I have to create and manually push so that from now on, the targeted machine, member 2, will go pull this one and apply it. So there's a few steps involved in getting all this garbage set up, but I think we're probably just about ready to go ahead and do it. So let's start with a fresh screen. So we've got a fresh world, and we're going to start by running that sample configuration script. Okay, so sample config.ps1. Now remember, I've got a bunch of write debugs in here just so we can kind of go through this one at a time. In fact, before we set this up, let's leave that one right there. I am going to Control-Alt-Delete, start task manager, and let's run a new task so I can get another PowerShell window. So the blue window is where we'll use to kind of check and see what's happening. And then the black one is where we'll actually run the configuration script. So here we go. Oh, I didn't mean to just do the sample config. That's not what I wanted. I wanted setup DSC. Yes, that's the one I wanted. Okay, so I need to set my execution policy. Set execution policy bypass. And now let's run it again. Okay, so the first thing it's going to do is attempt to set up DSC. Yes, continue. Lots of stuff. We're installing IIS. We are setting up a website. We are setting up a web service. So this is going to take a couple of seconds. Now it's into the really gnarly stuff. Okay, we now have a DSC pull server. Woohoo! Let's go ahead and create the configuration MOF that we want member 2 to pull from the pull server. Actually, before we do that, let's just go check and see what happened here. I should now have a cd inetpub folder. I've got a www root. There it is. And you can see I've got a PSDSC pull server folder. That's the actual code that makes this happen. There's the service definition, XML, the web configuration, and then under the bin folder are the actual binaries. This is the desired state configuration pull service.dll. So that's actually running. So now let's go ahead and let it create the pull configuration MOF that we want member 2 to pull from the pull server. Yes, proceed. Okay, now we're going to relocate the MOF to a pull folder. But before we do that, let's actually go into DSC. You can see I've got this pull demo now. And there's the member 2 MOF, right? So we've got that. Now it's going to relocate that. Yes. Relocate the MOF to the pull folder and generate checksum MOFs. Let's do both of those steps, and then we'll go check and see what it is going to do. I forget the folder for that, so I'm just going to look at the script again as a cheat. Get content setup DSC. Let's see. We're up a bit. Program data. Here, we'll just grab all this. CD, paste, ls. So there's the MOF file, and this is just the one that we copied from that pull demo folder. And then you get a checksum file that goes with it, and that's going to contain the checksum information for that file. So the targeted node is going to download this. It's going to run its own checksum. Then it's going to download this and make sure that it matches. And that's how it will know it downloaded this entire file correctly. All right, so the next step, it says, is we're going to see if the Windows Server Backup feature is presently installed. Continue. Looks like it's not because we got no output. So the next thing, oh, no, we're still checking. Here it goes. Okay, so installed is false, available is true, so it is not currently installed. Now we're going to configure the MOF that sets up pull mode and push it to the server via remoting. So what we already created was the MOF that will install Windows Server Backup. Now we're going to create the one that tells it to go to pull mode. So there it is. We're about to kick it off. I've just got a lot of debug outputs in here because I'm running these with debug. Processing complete. You can see there's a lot of debug messages. Okay, ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. The next thing we're going, so that's now been pushed out there. The next thing we're going to do is force the machine, the remote machine, to run its configuration, just so we don't have to sit here and wait. So the LCM is applying its configuration, and we're just waiting for that to finish. Okay, now hopefully that installed the feature. Let's see. We're going to let this run. Looks like we're collecting data, and installed is true. So we worked. We set up a pull server, and I gave you've got a script you can use to do that now. We created a configuration. We copied it over to the pull server folder. We created another configuration to specify pull mode, pushed that configuration, thereby turning on pull mode, which forced that remote machine to run the configuration and, in the end, install Windows Server Backup. So there are a lot of moving pieces, but I think if you just kind of sit down and watch this nugget a couple of times, all those pieces will kind of come together. And remember that once you set something up, it's easier to use it from them. This getting the pull server set up and configuring a machine to use the pull server, those are both one-time tasks. From then on, it's just writing configurations, dropping them in the correct folder, and making sure that you have the correct checksum in that folder. And then once you've done that, you're good to go. The machines will just start to target it, grab it. So we walked through a lot there. Let's take a quick wrap up. So I showed you how to write a configuration and then push that configuration out to a computer. That was the easy bits. Then I showed you how to set up a pull server. I gave you a script that can do it, but you can also use the new DSC Web Service resource that Microsoft created and use DSC to set up DSC. I created that same configuration on the pull server, and then I showed you how to set the machine up to use pull mode, grabbing that configuration and then immediately implementing it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.